Hello, everyone. Welcome in. Welcome along. We're getting started today without video, so that's why you don't see our faces when that fades away.
Yeah, we're here, though.
We are here.
The live chat's going if you're watching live, so please comment and also stick around to watch because we're going to be playing videos and showing photos for today's show. And if you
can't see our faces.
Yeah. Our beautiful faces.
Well, your beautiful face. I don't know about
Ed,
me
you
today.
have a beautiful face.
It's hidden by hair today, I think. my unkempt mustache.
Well, we would never know.
That's true. Pretend you didn't hear that.
Hear what?
Welcome to Crimes Against Folk. Today we are bringing you this podcast thanks to the good folks at EV.
Yay.
They've sponsored us with these lovely RE20 black microphones. They're fantastic. If you want to know more about EV, go to electrovoice.com. And we want to thank our patrons as well for helping to support this podcast. We got a couple of new patrons in a couple weeks ago. That was pretty nice.
Yeah, keep joining us. It's really exciting to watch our community grow, and we really are pretty active about posting stuff and replying to stuff, and we love seeing your comments come in. So just $5 a month. Don't forget to join us on patreon.com/crimesagainstfolk.
Yeah, it's real fun over there. So we're going to get some more stuff up there throughout the next few months. So you don't want to miss that. So go ahead and check it out.
Yeah.
Today we're doing another podcumentary, and it was going to be a few different things, as most of these go. Like mine have taken some weird twists as well.
That's true.
But
I feel like most good, this is a podcumentary, but I feel like most good documentaries do that. They start off with one thing, and the more you start pulling the layers off, it leads you in other directions. And I feel like that's part of the fun of it. It's like you start to discover stuff, and then it makes you go down a rabbit hole that you didn't think you were going to go down. And like, what story am I going to discover with this?
That's true. Yeah, or it's just like there's some kind of you pull a thread and it's like, oh wait, there's more to this thread than I thought there was.
Yeah. And we had decided. Well, first of all, happy Valentine's Day, Ed, and happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
Thank you.
It's we kind of wanted to do a Valentine's Day theme, but I had a very difficult time coming up with a topic that I thought would be interesting that involved Valentine's Day, and we decided that it's February, it's Black History Month, and we decided that was a more important thing to highlight. And so I was kind of like, okay, I can do a Valentine's Day theme or I can do Black History thing. Which should we do? And we decided Black History was more important. So then I decided, okay, well, let's talk about, Black folk artists, because you don't hear about Black folk artists very often, and we like to tell you the untold stories here at Crimes Against Folk. So I was like, I'll come up with 5 Black folk artists that matter, and I got as far as Elizabeth Cotten, and I stopped. Not because I got lazy, because her story was too intriguing, and I just ended up doing the whole show about her.
Yeah, I mean, she is. I would say one of the she's a towering figure in folk music. And so I think it's only fair to really focus a whole episode on her. That's for sure.
I agree. And also, I don't know. I hadn't heard of Elizabeth Cotten before you introduced me to her, Ed.
Mm-hmm.
Because we would always play The Boxer by Simon and Garfunkel. And
Yep.
at the end of the Boxer, Ed would do this little riff every single time. And I just thought it was part of the Boxer because I didn't know any better. And then one day he told me that it was actually a song called Freight Train.
Yep.
And I was like, what's that?
The stupidest thing how I actually found out about Elizabeth Cotten.
Yeah, I want to hear it.
So a random friend of mine, one of my friends who I played World of Warcraft with, he posted, I'm trying to remember where he posted this. He posted some photo of some young woman. It was a young white woman on his timeline or whatever. And it said Elizabeth Cotten on it. I'm like, who is that? Is that some kind of celebrity or is she some kind of model or whatever? So I just did a Google search for Elizabeth Cotten, and the folk artist Elizabeth Cotten was the first person that came up, obviously. This other person was nowhere to be found. So I don't know who that is to this day. But I found out about Elizabeth Cotten, and I was like, and so I listened to Freight Train, and then I realized I'd heard that song before.
Yeah, because it's super famous.
Yeah, I heard it in a video game. Big surprise.
That's awesome.
They had whoever did the music for the game, Sid Meier's Railroads, had they did a version of that song in the game, and it's actually pretty good.
Oh, okay.
Just like an instrumental version of it. And so I put 2 and 2 together, and I became a fan of Elizabeth Cotten through a very roundabout way.
That's actually really cool. And also, much like you shouldn't go to ashleynorton.com, right. Don't go to elizabethcotten.com.
Oh, no.
It's like
I won't do that.
There's like you'll find some chicks in pajamas. Or do go to elizabethcotten.com.
I guess if you're into that,
Yeah, if you go to ashleynorton.com, you'll find a bunch of doorknobs. So this is something that Elizabeth and I have in common.
It's just misdirected URLs, I guess. Misappropriated URLs, I guess.
Yeah, which in case you guys, I get this a lot. Well, why do you put the E in the middle of your name? This is why, because ashleynorton.com is doorknobs. And I'd rather not be a doorknob.
So yeah, today we're talking about Elizabeth Cotten. And let's see, you had a video you wanted to start with.
Yeah, let's go ahead and kick it off with the video, because this is, as Ed mentioned, Freight Train is a very, very famous song. And this is a really cool live video of Elizabeth Liba Cotten performing it.
Freight train, run so fast. Freight train, run so fast. Please don't tell what train I'm on. They won't know what route I'm gone. When I am dead and in my grave, no more good time ere I crave. Place the stone at my head and feet. Tell them all that I'm gone to sleep. When I die, Lord, bury me deep, way down on old Chestnut Street. Then I can hear old number 9 as she comes rolling by. Freight train, run so fast. Freight train, run so fast. Please don't tell what train I'm on. They won't know what route I'm gone.
So obviously she's quite a bit older there, but what's not really in the course of her career, because she didn't have her first hit until she was 62.
Jeez.
Yeah. And what's even crazier is she wrote that song when she was 11. So
Wow.
it's really an incredible story. And I'm going to jump in because there is a reason why. And I mean, you don't hear about that very often in music, so it's very unique. But yeah, that song has just Elizabeth Cotten has been extraordinarily influential on specifically the folk music scene and also the rock music scene, which is crazy. So I'm going to give you a little bit of history why. Fair warning, you might get a little bit sick of that song by the end of this Podcumentary because I do have a few clips, but they're for good reasons as well. So I'm going to jump into the history of Elizabeth Cotten. She was born on January 5th, 1893. And she died on June 29th, 1987.
Wow.
She was a left-handed guitar player, but she never restrung it for a lefty. She played her guitar upside down and backwards.
Ah, is it Ethan Newman style?
Ethan Newman style. If you guys listened to our last podcast, you would have heard us talk about Ethan Newman, and that's how he plays. And she, she learned to play the melodies with her thumb and the bass notes with her fingers, coining the guitar picking style cotton picking. So cotton picking, if you ever hear cotton picking style, that came from Elizabeth Cotten.
No way.
Yeah, just kind of being self-taught and that's comes straight from her. And she, right? The story gets crazy. I'm telling you, this is so exciting. She was born in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. She was the youngest of 5 kids. And she named herself on the first day of school when the teacher asked her name, because at home she was only called Little Sis. Lil Sis. She didn't know her name. And when she was 7, she started stealing / borrowing her brother's banjo against his will when he went to work. And according to Elizabeth, she kept breaking strings, and he would ask her, please stop playing my banjo because you're breaking my strings, but she just couldn't stop. And so she's also a self-taught banjo player, and I want to play just a short clip of we don't have to play the full song, but just so you can kind of get an idea of Elizabeth Cotten playing the banjo here.
Wow, that's really impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can tell she's got a real style, you know?
Yeah. No kidding. Like
Yeah.
there's just a certain way she's playing it that you know who it is.
Yeah, and you can kind of hear the similarities between the guitar and the banjo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So at age 9, she was forced to quit school and start working because it's kind of the times, right?
Yeah, that's what happened back then.
Yeah. So she got her first live-in job in Chapel Hill, and she earned $1 a month, which she saved up in a year, $3.75, and she bought her first Stella guitar from a local dry goods store. She started writing music, and she wrote Freight Train at that time. And the song is about a train that she would hear from her childhood home. And that's what inspired her, as a kid. That's kind of what you would write, and she did. And she got married real young too. She married at like 15, which sounds super young. But again, back then it really wasn't that young. It was kind of just what happened in the time. I mean, it's too young. It's too young, you guys. But anyway, and so she wrote Freight Train when she was 11 or 12. And then in 1956, there was a UK recording of the song by Chas McDevitt and Nancy Whiskey. It was a major hit and credited as one of the main influences of the rise of skiffle in the UK. Now, I'm going to get back to Elizabeth Cotten's life in a little bit. I want to skip to what skiffle is, though, because that stopped me in my tracks.
I've heard of this genre before, but I don't exactly know what it is.
I had never heard of it. And so I was reading up on Elizabeth Cotten, and a lot of this, I found a few great articles on her, but a lot of this came right from Wikipedia. And they had skiffle, and they have it, highlighted in blue, so you can click on skiffle. And I'm like, what is skiffle? And skiffle took me down, as we mentioned earlier, there is a lot of rabbit holes here, and this is probably the biggest rabbit hole of this story is skiffle and how it was influenced by Elizabeth Cotten because she wrote this song. So I want to play a clip of McDevitt and Whiskey performing Freight Train as a skiffle song in 1956. So you can hear that now.
Freight train, going so fast. Freight train, going so fast. I don't know what train he's on. Would you tell me where he's gone? Don't know where he's heading for, what he's done against the law. Got no future, got no hope, just nothing but the road. Freight train, going so fast. Freight train, going so fast. I don't know what train he's on. Would you tell me where he's gone? He lost his reason, lost his life. He killed his friend in Marshall Strife. He must be moved like the rolling sky, just a wait until he dies. Freight train, going so fast. Freight train, going so fast. I don't know what train he's on. Would you tell me where he's gone? When he dies, just bury him, please. Way down the end of Old Chestnut Street. Poplars at his head and feet, and tell him he's gone to sleep.
That's a neat take on that. I like that.
Yeah. And you can kind of hear there's a little bit of folk in there. There's a little bit of rockabilly in there. Some kind of blues, some rock and roll. It's skiffle. It's a genre, and it's according to Wikipedia, it's a genre of folk music with influences from blues, jazz, and American folk music, generally performed with a mixture of manufactured and homemade or improvised instruments. It originated in the U.S. in the first half of the 20th century, but it became very popular in the 1950s in the UK. So I heard a comment about this already, but on our live chat, but it was played by artists such as Lonnie Donegan, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, the Vipers Skiffle Group, Ken Collier, and Chaz McDevitt. Skiffle was a major part of the earlier careers of some of the musicians who became really popular in jazz, pop, blues, folk, and rock and roll, including the Beatles.
That's where I'd heard it from. That's where I'd heard it.
You heard it from the Beatles, Ed.
Yeah, I knew that was part of their history, like that they kind of started as like a skiffle group, or they dabbled in that genre before they eventually graduated to rock and roll.
Well, apparently Billy Bragg wrote an entire book on skiffle.
Oh,
but again, we're gonna get to that. And Rory Gallagher is another example. So it was really it was a big stepping stone to the British folk revival, the British blues boom, and the British invasion of the USA. The origins are kind of obscure, but they're thought to lie in African American musical culture in the early 20th century, hence Elizabeth Cotten. Skiffle is often said to have developed from New Orleans jazz, but this has been disputed. Improvised jug bands playing blues and jazz were common across the American South in early decades of the 20th century. They used instruments such as washboard, jugs, washtub bass, cigar box, fiddle, musical saw. I have this dream of having a musical saw in Witherward someday. I'm going to get a musical saw and give it to Stephanie and just see what happens.
Didn't we see someone play that? We saw someone play that at the SeaWorld gig we played ages ago.
Yeah, and we were just...
It was amazing.
Yeah, our jaws were on the floor. It was... I mean, I can't decide if it's like easier than it looks or harder than it looks.
I don't know. I feel like it'd be harder than it looks. It'd be like playing a theremin or something, which looks easy,
so too.
But I don't know.
But it'd be pretty funny if somebody was like, no, it's really not that hard. You just kind of do this.
Right.
But it's probably actually hard. I shouldn't say that. Comb and paper kazoos. And then also some conventional instruments. I mean, we counted 5 guitars in that last clip.
Yeah, something like that. And a washboard and an upright bass.
yeah, kind of excessive, but really fun sound, and banjo as well. We don't really know what the origin of the word is, but in the dialect of West England, to make a skiffle means to make a mess of any business. It is attested from 1873. That's what Wikipedia says. In 20th century America, this term skiffle was one of the many slang phrases for a rent party, a social event with a small charge designed to pay rent on a house. It was first recorded in Chicago in the 1920s.
See, that makes a little more sense to me. Like maybe it derived from there, because you normally have bands playing music at a lot of those rent parties.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, like there's a lot of good like early jazz video, like kind of quote unquote music videos of rent parties. Like Fats Waller did a couple of them, and yeah, they're like playing music and stuff. I would imagine that's probably it came from there.
I've never even heard of a rent party.
Yeah, it's exactly what you think it is.
I'm about to go down another rabbit hole.
But yeah, that makes sense to me. Maybe it originated from there or traveled from there.
It's exactly what you think it is in you pay the rent and have a party. Or have a party to pay
other
the
way
rent?
around. You have a party and then pay the rent
Okay.
because everybody chips in for money to pay the rent.
Yeah. Okay.
At the place, and but it's just a big party.
Oh, I feel like I should have a rent party every month. Just me and Brad. Her rent party, babe. Bring out the party hats.
That's hilarious.
Anyway, so I'm talking about skiffle so much just because I think it's really interesting that Elizabeth Cotten, who wrote a song when she was 11 years old in, the early 1900s, ended up having one of the biggest skiffle hits in the UK 50 years later. Therefore, possibly influencing the Beatles.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So
That is crazy.
think about that. I mean, it's really possible that Elizabeth Cotten influenced the Beatles.
Yeah.
So I mentioned earlier that Billy Bragg wrote a book on this, and I found this really wonderful clip. Now, we love Billy Bragg. We actually he opened for us at a show in England a few years back, which was really crazy and super exciting. And he was the nicest guy. In fact, I remember him sitting next to me, and he came down, sat right next to me, and he goes, I'm telling you, Ashley, if you want to make money in the music industry, what you got to do is you've got to write a book. You've got to write a book because I've made more money off this book than like anything in the music industry. It's really a real good money maker. That's just a little tip for you. And I said, that's great, Billy Bragg. There's one big difference between you and me. And he goes, what? And I said, you're Billy Bragg. And he goes, oh, well, that's true.
Yeah, that's right.
A little easier for that guy to sell books. If you don't know who Billy Bragg is, he's a very, very popular folk singer in England, and he is absolutely incredible and blew us away with his set. So you should check out his music. And let's play this clip from Billy Bragg now.
With a new take on the birth of rock and roll, Jeffrey Brown has the story.
He's back in fashion, pure accident, waiting to happen.
Billy Bragg first rose to fame as a punk rock and folk musician in the early 1980s.
And the sleep of reason produces monsters.
Now nearing 60, he's still singing hard-edged songs of protest and passion. Here recently at the Birchmere Music Hall in Alexandria, Virginia.
Kids are outright giving license to all this hate.
In a new book, Roots, Radicals, and Rockers, he's also looking back to an even earlier, lesser-known but important moment in music history.
I'm a gambling man. I'm a gambling man.
When a pop star named Lonnie Donegan and others took Britain by storm in the mid-1950s with a phenomenon called skiffle music.
What Donegan does, he's the first British artist to get in the charts playing a guitar, and he begins the process of turning it into a guitar-led, British pop into a guitar-led music for teenagers. As the guitar becomes a kind of way that our youngsters express the fact that they're different from their parents. It's the guitar becomes the way that they start to try and make the future happen.
Oh, the rock on the line, it's a mighty good road.
They did it, though, by listening to the past, to skiffle's roots in African-American culture, including traditional New Orleans jazz, and the great American folk and blues musician Huddie Ledbetter, known as Leadbelly.
Well, the rock on the line is the road to ride it.
Lonnie Donegan had a hit in 1956 with Leadbelly's Rock Island Line. And British kids picked up cheap acoustic guitars, homemade tea-chest basses, and washboards to play something akin to American jug band or rockabilly music. Bragg says it was a turning point for British culture, still coming out of its post-war depths.
Just a month before Lonnie Donegan records Rock Island Line, food rationing ends in the UK. It goes on after the Second World War because we have a huge balance of payments problem. Some things are rationed after the war that are never rationed during the war. Bread, for instance, was rationed for a short while after the war. So the kids who are playing skiffle have grown up not being able to go into a sweet shop and buy whatever they want. All of a sudden, they're 14, 15, 16, they're leaving school, they're going to work, they're getting paid reasonably well in the post-war boom. And they want something that identifies them as different. And skiffle becomes that thing for the young men.
Calling all the loud
Among those young men, 14-year-old James Page, here on the BBC with his skiffle band.
Do you play anything except skiffle?
Yes, Spanish and dance.
Do you? Well.
Jimmy Page would later become one of rock's biggest stars as the guitarist for Led Zeppelin. And he was hardly the only rocker to start out in skiffle.
Well, Van Morrison was 12. You know, George Harrison was 13 when he saw Donegan. McCartney 14. Lennon 16.
Those are big names later on, right?
Yeah. Teenagers, when they saw that, they knew that this was the future and that they needed to get hold of one of those guitars. I mean, the sales of guitars, acoustic guitars this is, went from 5,000 in 1 year, 3 years later, to 250,000 guitars in a year. And they're all playing in, you know, there's not a scene. Yeah. They're playing in back rooms and you know, church halls, but it's what they do subsequently when they're 20, 25 that really makes a difference.
John Lennon and Paul McCartney's first group, the Quarrymen, started as a skiffle band. The rest, as they say, is history.
3,000 screaming teenagers are at New York's Kennedy Airport to greet, you guessed it, the Beatles.
As young British musicians plugged in, threw out the old-timey skiffle sounds to create their own, and brought that back across the Atlantic in the British invasion.
From January 1964 to December 1965, there's a British group at #1 in the American charts for 52 weeks out of 104. Every single one of them begins as a skiffle group. The only exception is Petula Clark. And she didn't need Lonnie Donegan to help her out. She'd already put out 12 singles before skiffle started. But everybody else, Chad and Jeremy, the Rolling Stones, the Tremolos, the Animals, all have their roots in skiffle. Skiffle liberates those bands to get out there and play music at such a young age that when the Beatles break the charts in America in January '64, there's a whole cohort of British bands who've been playing for years who are ready to go. And it takes American youth a little longer to catch up.
Skiffle gave them the means, the something to get up with a guitar.
It's the sense of empowerment that came with skiffle to very young people, to make them think they can make their own music, to not wait for someone else to make it. That's a very similar impulse to punk rock. And I think that's what drove the Beatles and all those other bands to write their own material.
Thought I heard that Casey when she mowed.
For his part, Billy Bragg has continued to write his own songs while also working within traditions of the past. His most recent album, Shine a Light, with the American singer-songwriter Joe Henry, was largely recorded in railway stations around the U.S.
Now the rich man took my home.
And at the Birchmere concert, Bragg offered a beautiful version of a Woody Guthrie song.
And I ain't got no home in this world anymore.
But when I asked about his own coming-of-age skiffle-style moment, he turned to his punk rock roots.
The Clash.
The Clash.
More or less, yeah. I saw The Clash when I was 19. Me and some friends of mine had been really interested in bands like Dr. Feelgood and The Jam, who were stripping it back. And we went to see The Clash at the Rainbow in 1978. And it seemed to... It's one of those watershed moments. It's like when the skifflers heard Donegan. It's that, you know, that sort of ability to make your own culture that came with punk rock that really it keeps me going. That's why I thought I could sit down and write a book about skiffle rather than wait for someone to ask me.
Let's break it down and start again.
For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Jeffrey Brown from the Birchmere Music Hall in Alexandria, Virginia.
Let's stop pretending.
That's a really interesting perspective on skiffle. You know, it just shows how important that particular genre was, and it's you know, the entire British invasion was built on African American folk music and jazz and blues.
Yeah.
Like the entire thing. So it's just, I'm glad that he kind of points that out, at least.
And just looking at the evolution is absolutely amazing. So we're going backwards towards Elizabeth Cotten and then working our way back forwards again, you know, with this song about a freight train and that she wrote at, 11 years old, and she influenced all these, her and so many other, African American folk artists, that music made its way to England and somehow turned into skiffle, which turned into rock, which made it back to the USA. I mean, the evolution's insane.
Yeah.
It's really, really cool. And I just think that's such a great interview with Billy Bragg too. So thanks to PBS for letting us use that. So remember again, Elizabeth Cotten, she was born in 1893. So her first hit wasn't until she was in her 60s, even though she wrote it all those years ago. So back to her story. At age 13, she quit music to be a maid with her mom. As I mentioned, she got married at 15, and through some life happenings, marriages, moves, anything, she went settled in Washington, D.C. for a while, and then she ended up in New York City. And then she wouldn't pick up the guitar again until she was 60 years old. And wow. Yeah, and we are about to go down another rabbit hole. Here's what happened. So she was working briefly in a department store, and Cotten found a little child wandering through the aisles, and she helped this child find her mother. The child was Peggy Seeger, and the mother was composer and music teacher Ruth Crawford Seeger. Because of this, she was hired by the Seeger household, as in Pete Seeger. You guys know Pete Seeger because he's a political activist and folk singer famous for songs such as Where Have All the Flowers Gone and If I Had a Hammer. So it's a very, very musical family. And because of this, I guess Elizabeth picked up the guitar again, and she kind of got caught. Like, she didn't ask, she just picked it up and she started playing it, and somebody like walked in on her and she was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And they're like, no, keep playing, because she's so good. And she had played as if no time had passed at all. So she was, so during her care for the Seeger family, she was caring for all their children, Mike, Peggy, Barbara, and Penny. So again, 40 years passed by before she picked up the guitar again. The father of the house. So again, this household seemed just really, really cool. The father, Charles, also pioneered the field of ethnomusicology, which I had to look up. Have you heard of that before, Ed?
Yeah, the original tenor sax player for Hazard, Nick Johnson, he is a professor of ethnomusicology.
Wow.
In Indiana, I believe.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he's got like a master's or a PhD in it or something.
Okay, well, the ethnomusicology is the study of music from the cultural and social aspects of the people who make it. It encompasses distinct theoretical and methodical approaches that emphasize cultural, social, material, cognitive, biological, and other dimensions or contexts of musical behavior, in addition to the sound and component. So, very musical family. You can probably imagine, even with the father's background, how they were probably so interested when their housekeeper just picks up the guitar and is amazing. and also playing the guitar more, so differently with this Cotten style picking that really hadn't been done before. They're like, what is happening? What is going on? So Elizabeth Cotten soon found herself giving small concerts in the homes of congressmen and senators, including John F. Kennedy.
Oh.
Yeah. So Mike Seeger, one of the kids, he probably grew up, or maybe he was older. I'm not sure the timeline there, but he began making bedroom reel-to-reel recordings of Cotten's songs in her house. These recordings later became the album Folk Songs and Instrumentals with Guitar, which was released by Folkway Records when Cotten was 62.
Wow.
So, which had Freight Train on it and became her first hit. So just to drive home how influential Cotten is, this album is also one of the first to record the popularized open tunings, which we hear in folk music all the time. So I found there's a really great article on the Smithsonian website, which we'll put in the show notes if you want to take a look at it. But there's a great clip in there of Mike recording Cotten, like a video of him recording her. in one of these reel-to-reel sessions. So we can go ahead and play that for you now.
Let me know when you're ready. Freight train, run so fast. Freight train, run so fast. Please don't tell what train I'm on. They won't know what route I'm on. When I'm getting lost in the deep, way down on old Chestnut Street, I can hear old number 9 and she come rolling by. I'm dead and in my grave, no more good time, yeah, I crave. Place the stone at my enemy, tell 'em all I'm gone to
Pretty cool, huh?
That's really cool.
She's 62 there. She looks great.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's the beginning of her career. So the release of that album and her songs, especially her signature song, Freight Train, have been covered by Peter, Paul, and Mary, Jerry Garcia, Bob Dylan, Joe Dassin, Joan Baez, Devendra Banhart, Laura Gibson, Laura Veers, His Name is Alive, Doc Watson, Taj Mahal, Jeff Farina, and Country Teasers. And so shortly after this first album, she began playing concerts with Mike Seeger. In the 1960s, Cotten went on to play with some really big names in the folk revival. Some of these included Mississippi John Hurt, John Lee Hooker, Muddy Waters. She appeared on the Newport Folk Festival and the Smithsonian Festival of American Folk Life, and a lot of folk festivals, a ton of them, which is, as you know, in the 60s was huge. Mm-hmm. So in 1967, she released a record created with her grandchildren, which took its name from one of her songs, "Shake Sugary." And I heard, I'm not going to play it now because I didn't prepare a link, but if you get a chance to look up "Shake Sugary," it's really,
I like that song.
Yeah, and it's really cute. Her grandkids sound amazing.
Aw.
It's really cute. It's on the Smithsonian website, or I'm sure you can find it on YouTube, or I'm not sure where else, but do a quick Google search. I'm sure you could find it. Maybe share it on our podcast group if you find it. Mm-hmm. She was also able to continue touring and releasing records well into her 80s. In 1984, she won the Grammy for Best Ethnic or Traditional Recording for the album Elizabeth Cotten Live, released by Arhoolie Records. So when she was accepting the award in LA, her comment was, "Thank you. I only wish I had my guitar so I could play a song for you all." And how cute is that? And she was in her 80s. In the same year, Cotten was declared a National Heritage Fellow by the National Endowment for the Arts and was later recognized by the Smithsonian Institution as a living treasure. In 1989, Cotten was one of 75 influential African-American women included in the photo documentary I Dream a World, including Oprah Winfrey and some other amazing women. Cotten died in June 1987 in Syracuse, New York, at the age of 94.
Wow.
Her last concert was one that folk legend Odetta put together for her in New York City in the spring of 1987, shortly before her death. Cotten's legacy lives on not only in her own recordings, but also in the many artists who continue to play her work. The Grateful Dead produced several renditions of Oh Babe, It Ain't No Lie. Bob Dylan covered Shake Sugary and Freight Train. And and continues well. There's plenty, lots of her stuff still performed by or recorded by Mike Seeger, Taj Mahal, Peter, Paul, and Mary, as I mentioned earlier. And just so you don't have Freight Train stuck in your head all day, since we've now played it 3 times, I prepared this song. I'm not sure which concert this is, but it's one of her last concerts for sure, if not her last concert. I'm not entirely certain. It didn't say in the clip, but this is Elizabeth Cotten playing for a really beautiful audience, and I just thought that the story in front of the song itself was really great. So you'll hear Elizabeth Cotten tell you herself.
Her lies on me, and oh baby, it ain't no lie. Maybe y'all know that. And there's a little story behind this song. My mother worked all the time, and this lady lived next door to us. I'm from Chapel Hill, North Carolina. That's where I was born and raised. Well, when I was living there, a little girl, all of this happened. My mother would go out to work every morning, and this lady next door, Miss Mary, she'd look on the children when the mothers go to work. And if there was fighting or anything, she'd get into it and stop them. So she told my mother one time that I talked back to her, I sassed her. My mother punished me. She made me stay inside of the yard. She wouldn't let me go outside of the yard. She wouldn't let me have any company. And I don't know how long Mother punished me, but anyway, if it wasn't but a day, it was too long for me. And this lady, Miss Mary, I thought a lot of her. I just loved her, but when she told my mother that on me, I didn't feel towards her like I always did. I lay in bed at night and cry and wonder why Miss Mary would tell Mama that my mother didn't allow her children to talk back to old people. You know, older people, you better not, and she hear from it. And I was afraid to do it. I wouldn't do a thing like that then. I don't know what I might do now. So anyway, I lay in bed at night and just cry. And a little verse come to me, and this is the little verse. I'm going to sing it once, then I'll ask y'all to sing it with me. I'd sit on the end of our porch in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and I'd play and sing this song just as loud as I wanted to. And she would say to me, they called me Sis. And she said, little sis, that song is a pretty song. Well, you know what I'd want to say, don't you know? Don't you know what I'd want to say? It's about you, but I couldn't say it. I was daring to say that if she'd tell my mother that I said that to her. I guess my mother would have punished me for 6 months then. My mother died, and she didn't know what it was about. I was daring to let her know this song was about Miss Mary. Miss Mary died, and she didn't know it was about her. So now they both is dead, and I'm playing singing as much as I want to. Thank you. I'm going to sing the verse, and if anyone in here know it, sing it along with me. Now listen. There is one old woman, Lord, in this town, keep her telling her lies on me. I wish to my soul that old woman would die. Keep her telling her lies on me. Now, can't y'all sing that with me? Come on. There is one old woman, Lord, in this. Keep her telling her lies on me. I wish to my soul that old woman would die. Keep her telling her lies on me. Oh, baby, it ain't no lie. Oh, baby, it ain't no lie. Oh, baby, it ain't no lie. I know this life I'm living is very high. Now, can't you sing that? Come on. Oh, baby, it ain't no lie. Oh, baby, it ain't no lie. Oh, baby, it ain't no lie. I know this life I'm living is very high. Now, once more. There is one old woman, Lord, in this town. Keep her telling her lies on me. Wish to my soul that old woman would die. Keep her telling her lies on me. Oh, baby, it ain't no lie. Oh, baby, it ain't no lie. Oh, baby, it ain't no lie. I know this life I'm living is very high. And coast. Oh, baby, it ain't no lie. Oh, baby, it ain't no lie. Oh, baby, it ain't no lie. I know this life I'm living is very high.
Yeah, that sounds familiar to me. Like I think I may have heard that concert before. I remember her. I feel like I remember her asking the audience to sing along with her.
Oh, okay. Yeah, what a performer. She's really magnetic and I mean she's in her possibly 90s there.
Oh my gosh.
And still holding a crowd like that and still sounds like that. It's incredible.
And the guitar playing is unbelievable.
Yeah. I think that's the thing that really stops everybody in their tracks, like from, the Seegers, even, earlier years of her family being like, what are you doing? And if you watch close-ups of her hands, I mean, she's really mainly picking with her thumb and her pointer, and everything else is happening on the neck, which is just, to me, I don't get that. It's really impressive how you can get that much sound over so little movement on your picking hand.
Yeah, I think her part of that style and that innovation, she's able to play melodies so easily because she's picking them with her thumb as opposed to her fingers, which might be her other fingers, which might be curled up a little bit. It's not as, I mean, it's, if you practice enough, you get used to playing melodies with your fingers like that, but playing them with your thumb is something entirely different, It's just incredible how she's able to do that. But it's like all the interlocking rhythms she's doing when she's playing too are just phenomenal. Like it's so hard to even think of anybody who could even play remotely like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, think about if we saw somebody sit down and start playing like that, we'd be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like in a good
How
way.
did you do that?
Yeah. So it makes a lot of sense of why that the Seeger family kind of catapulted her career, because they were just so surprised that their housekeeper was this incredible musician.
Yeah.
They were like, something important is happening here, and we have to record it and let other people hear it.
Yeah, that's incredible. What an incredible story.
Yeah, and it doesn't sound like there was anything too weird. Like nobody tried to take credit for her music necessarily.
Oddly enough.
Yeah, well, and I think that probably has something to do with the fact that she was immediately playing for like John F. Kennedy. Like it's kind of hard to steal a song like that. But yes, she had, the incredible blessing of the Seeger family. Mm-hmm. To kind of look after her and start off her career on a right foot at 60 years old.
Yeah.
And thanks to Linda, who just shared a link in the live chat. The Recording Academy announced 29 recordings being added to the Grammy Museum's catalog this year, and Freight Train is one of them.
Nice.
Yeah, if you guys have any other history to share or any other things, please throw it in the chat or throw it in our Patreon documentary feed. We'd love to discuss it either on the show or with you privately as well, because we love this stuff. So I'm not done yet.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, Elizabeth Cotten, I think I'm done with talking about her. But I originally, as I mentioned earlier, I intended on showcasing 5 Black folk artists to celebrate Black History Month today. I became too engulfed with Elizabeth's story to get to the other 4, but I do want to mention another 4. And I'm going to leave it up to you to do most of the research and look up the songs and the sounds on your own. We'll also put a article that I took this information from in the show notes, as well as, like, I can throw it here in the chat too if you want to look it up. I'll just go ahead and throw that here. Yeah, it's this really cool article. I researched, important Black folk artists you should know, and this article from liveabout.com came up, and there were some really wonderful people that they highlighted in here with interesting careers, but I'm going to give you 4. First one was already touched earlier in the clip that we played. Huddie Ledbetter, a.k.a. Leadbelly, was born in Louisiana in 1888. Ledbetter's songs were said to have helped him get out of jail on murder charges twice. A judge released him under the care of music producers John and Alan Lomax, and his career took off. The Lomaxes made a recording of Goodnight Irene, written in 1933, which would eventually be adapted by the Weavers to be one of the most influential folk songs in contemporary history.
Right. That's a very popular folk song.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Number 2, Ma Rainey. Born in the 1880s, year unknown, somewhere between 82 and 86. She was one of the original folk blues singers. She traveled with a minstrel group. She made more than 100 recordings, which, think about the time, that is very difficult to do. 100 recordings. The mother of the blues, she was often called earlier in vaudeville, and also the authentic expression of Southern blues. And she really influenced a generation of blues singers, but it also kind of intertwines with folk, blues and folk.
Yeah.
As Ed mentioned, with rock and roll, it's all connected.
They all grow out of the same roots. Yeah.
Yep. We also talked about Odetta earlier in the show, so I wanted to mention Odetta now. Born in 1930, often referred to as the voice of the civil rights movement. Martin Luther King referred to her as the Queen of American folk music. Bob Dylan said, "The first thing that turned me on to folk singing was Odetta. I heard a record of hers, Odetta Sings Ballads and Blues, in a record store, back when you could listen to records right there in the store. Right then and there, I went out and traded my electric guitar and amplifier for an acoustical style guitar, a flat top Gibson.
Nice.
And then he got in a lot of trouble when he went the other way. The last one I wanted to share, I had not heard of before, but I thought this was really interesting. Sweet Honey in the Rock. Have you heard of them?
No, I have not heard of them.
They're an American 3-time Grammy Award nominated troupe who's expressed their history as Black women through song, dance, and sign language. They started their career in the 1970s. They're still around today. They've kind of been, they've been through about 20 members, but there's only 7 at a time typically. And yeah, they incorporate song, dance. It's very visual, and it's an a cappella group, I believe. I need to double check that. And they have a lot of, traditional folk music that kind of never, their sound really never changed, even though a lot of their members did. So check out Sweet Honey in the Rock.
Cool.
If you guys have other Black folk artists that you want to talk about, please throw it in the live chat. Please share with us on our Patreon exclusive group. We'd love to have you involved in that. If you go to patreon.com/crimes against folk, you can join the conversation and the fun for $5 a month. Or, message us privately. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
And that wraps up the...
Nicely done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
awesome.
We talk about the unsung heroes in the crimes against folk, and Ed, you mentioned earlier that a lot of music history has been whitewashed, and when you think folk music, you think of all these white players, which were very influential. Obviously, we've got Bob Dylan, Peter, Paul and Mary, Simon and Garfunkel, but what about Elizabeth Cotten and Odetta and Leadbelly? Like, you don't think about those because probably of the whitewashing, and I just thought this was a really important topic to discuss on Black History Month.
Well, and they, all of the a lot of the folk artists, the mostly white ones, they had access to better, chances. They had the money behind them. A lot of the, African American music that the artists about, they were influenced by a lot of those African Americans, as you can clearly see. I mean, you read any biography of any of those British invasion artists, and the first thing they'll say is, I was listening to blues records in my room when I was 12 or something. Like American Black blues artists. That's who they were listening to. And so it's like, but those blues artists never ever reached the level of fame that the Beatles did or the Rolling Stones did. That's kind of the odd situation that a lot of these people were in. Their music was used, and depending on their deal, maybe they got a fair shake or not.
Yeah,
I would bet they probably didn't, but
probably not.
Knowing the business,
unless you have the seekers to back you up.
Exactly, unless you've got somebody who's got your back, then, But a lot of this music and a lot of their music was very influential at the least, and it takes a lot of effort to remind people of that.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, and it's important to do so, which is why we have Black History Month, and I'm glad that we're focusing on that in February. Yep. So expect more Black history throughout our podcast in February.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next, we'll jump into a little, we're doing the video next, right?
Yeah, we're going to move on to the next segment. Thank you guys so much for joining us. By the way, I see we have a lot of new live listeners today. We do this every Sunday, and we tell untold stories. Sometimes we have guests, sometimes we tell stories from other people, and we're really happy that we can share information with you guys. And I'm really happy. I hear a lot of comments about learning so much from today, and that just makes me feel like this whole thing is worth it, even if we just get one of those comments, and we're getting quite a few. So thank you guys.
At the very least, if it makes you curious and want to look up more information on your own, it's worth it at that point.
Absolutely. And if you're new to the show and you want to join a deeper conversation, please go to patreon.com/crimes against folk. I just put the link in the chat. For $5 a month, we do a weekly pre-show where we actually play music for you guys. And then we do a monthly breakdown of a song. We do bonus tips and tricks, behind the scenes information. There's like so much that we just for $5 a month that we throw out at you guys, because we just want everybody to join, as many people as possible. So please do join us if you are interested. I put the link there. But yeah,
cool.
Now we're gonna talk about ourselves. Yeah.
So this was a music video that we did with our your cousins, Howard and Barb Ignatius, in Central Coast, California. When did we film this one?
Oh,
it was a couple years ago.
Yeah, I feel like it was 2018.
It might have been 2018.
I know we held on to this one for a while. We filmed it and then we held on to it for probably 6 months before we released it, because we were just we did 3 videos at the same time and we wanted to space them out a little bit.
Mm-hmm. So we wanted to share it again with y'all today. So this is our official music video for Sleeping with Shadows. You know what's funny is I listen to that now and I'm like, oh, you know what? The background vocals are too loud.
Really? I was thinking I liked how loud they were. And we never agree on background vocal volume, ever. It's like the one thing we don't agree on.
It's usually the opposite. It's usually I don't think they're loud enough and you think they're too loud. And now I listen to that, I'm like, oh, I think they're too loud.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I don't know. I'm changing my tune a little bit on background vocals. I think I'm starting to like them a little bit louder.
That's funny. I think I'm starting to go the opposite way now.
So
a little bit. So we'll probably meet in the middle, I guess, at some point. It'll be just
one
right.
of these days. Yeah. Okay, Goldilocks.
Only took 7 years to get there. That was a neat. I remember that experience was pretty cool because that year there was a super bloom out in that area.
Yeah.
So the fields were particularly vibrant.
Yeah, it was gorgeous. It was very cold though.
Yes.
It was very, very cold.
Yeah.
And we were losing sun very, very quickly. It was a little stressful. Yeah, well, that's our song Sleeping with Shadows. You can find it anywhere you stream your music or buy your music, or we're on it with a word. But we had a lot of fun making those videos with Howard Ignatius. Hopefully we'll get to do another one soon. And yeah, thank you guys for listening to our story on Elizabeth Cotten. And we now move on to the segment where we tell one of our stories from the road before we leave you.
Yeah, and this one I don't immediately remember this one, but Ash shared this this photo with me, and I kind of recognize where it is. It's so I'm in the background just looking expectantly at something, and Ash is in the foreground drinking a coffee, of course.
Of course.
And it looks like we're in a station of some kind. Are we in where are we? I can't tell. Is this St. Pancras?
I think so, or it might be. See, I don't know. I found this photo on Facebook because I wanted to share something from England. It must be in England somewhere because I at a train station. It must be at St. Pancras because we talked about England so much. We talked about Billy Bragg. I was like, well, we should do a photo from England. Why not?
Oh, yeah.
And so this one popped up. And the interesting thing about it, though, is the caption that came with it was very, very detailed. That's partly why I wanted to share this, because we had a very, very long travel day this day. This was the day that Ed and I went to go pick up our car.
Oh.
Was this right? Let's see. Okay, let me just read you the caption. There's a bunch of check marks here. So it says July 21st, 2019. That's not right.
Oh, yeah, so it probably wouldn't have been the thing.
Is this a memory? Oh, no, it wasn't. Okay, no, it wasn't when we had our car. Here we go. Let's just read it. 3 a.m. wake up. Check. 1 5-hour drive from Steendam, Netherlands to Frankfurt, Germany. Check. 1 Uber to train. Check. 1 train from Frankfurt to Brussels. Check. 1 Eurostar from Brussels to London. Check. 1 rental car. Check. 1.4-hour drive from London to Minster. Check. 1 6 p.m. arrival. Check. 1 Airbnb. Check. 1 fish and chips pub dinner. Check. 1 12-hour sleep. Check. 1 biggest travel day of the tour. Check. Good morning, everyone. Today we rock Chicken Stock Festival in the Kent region.
Okay. All right.
You got it?
Well, it completely explains what happened that day, so I don't have to remember it.
It's still fuzzy to me, though, even after all of that. So that must have been our most recent Europe tour, right?
Yes, that was the most recent Europe tour. And so this was because the first part of the 2019 tour we did in Germany this time,
right?
As opposed to the other 2 European tours we've done, we always started in the UK and then went. In 2018, then we went to Europe. In 2019, we started in Germany first.
Oh, and then we went to Netherlands. So we started in Germany, then we went to Netherlands.
Yes, we started in Germany, then we went to the Netherlands. Remember, because we had to get up very early. We had to get up very early and take the car back to Frankfurt. And then take a train. We decided to take a train when we originally were going to fly. And we decided, okay, well, let's take a train from Frankfurt to London and then pick up our next car in London and then head over to Chicken Stock area.
Huh.
I remember that. I do remember that stuff. So yeah, this must have been in St. Pancras. We were probably waiting for. We may have been waiting for for the guy to show up with a car. Because this isn't Brussels, so
it's so hard to not say St. Pancras. Pancreas.
I know. It's unfortunately named train station. For anyone who doesn't know, St. Pancras is it's one of the big train stations in London, and it's where you catch the Eurostar train that goes through the channel to get to mainland Europe and back. So
right, which is really fun.
Yeah, that's actually really neat. That's a neat trip
for us Americans.
Yeah, we get to take a train to another country.
We're underwater.
And underwater, yeah, that's pretty cool. So yeah,
that was a crazy travel day. I mean, I book our tours, right? And I try to make everything line up so we don't have to do crazy jumps and hoops and circus acts on our way but sometimes we just have to. Sometimes there's a show that we just can't say no to, and we're like, all right, we're gonna just make it work. And this was one of those days, and I think it's because we really wanted to play. There were like 3 festivals that were very far from each other that we got invited to, that we wanted to do all of them, and we didn't know how to say no, so we just made it happen, and here's proof. We did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one was, I think, just this day was just complicated because we had to, we weren't taking the car we had over to England.
Right.
So if we were doing that, it would have been a far less complicated day.
Yeah.
But since we had to take the car back, it became way more complicated than it normally would have.
Yeah, and became, what is that, three countries in one day? 4? Is that 4? 4 countries in one day?
Yeah.
4 countries in one day. Two and like UK versus EU too, which is more difficult now than it was in 2019. But it
wasn't a problem then,
Yeah.
but I can't imagine what it's like now.
I wonder. You guys, I
Any of
know
you-
you guys, a lot of you guys are in the UK watching. You'll have to let us know what it's like, especially
Yeah.
before we ever decide to go back.
I mean, I know it's probably it's different now because you don't nobody's traveling much of anywhere, I hope. But yeah, I'm curious what the travel is going to be like between mainland and UK now. So
Yeah, I wonder.
yeah. But yeah, now I do remember that day now.
Okay.
There's the picture alone, because we've been in that train station so many times. I didn't remember which time this was.
Well, I thought it was 2018 too. I was like, oh yeah, well, clearly the Subarus, and no, there was no Subaru in this time. It was just an insane travel day. But it was really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I know David Connolly was watching earlier. I don't know if he's still here, but he met us at the Chicken Stock Festival. It was really fun.
That was a fun festival. I really enjoyed Chicken Stock.
Yeah, me too. I got scratched by a dog, and I still have a scar from it. That stupid scratch just never went away.
Oh well.
Yep.
It's a memento.
Yeah, so that's just one of our many crazy travel days on the road. It's a short story, but it's been a long podcast, and it's fairly emotional. I don't know why this one really got to me. I was getting kind of verklempt towards the end of it, in fact.
Well, I think, Elizabeth Cotten is a pretty special figure.
Yeah.
In folk music. Like, again, when you learn about her and you read about her, you're like, wow. Like,
the story is incredible. And then what?
The story.
Yeah. And then I'm sitting here doing the research, and I'm like, wait, what? What happened? The Seekers? How are they involved? It's just crazy to me.
Yeah. It's an incredible story.
Yeah.
So
you guys can see why I ended up dedicating the whole podcast to her instead of the 5. I just had to.
Yeah.
That's too
so,
good.
I think we'll have the next week's story is going to be pretty good too.
Yeah. Oh, what is next week again?
Sharon Jones.
Oh yeah.
So another Black musician who just, I think, had an incredible career, another interesting, really cool story to share as well.
Another late start too.
Oh yeah, absolutely, another late start.
Which I really appreciate. I have a problem when people are like, and she's only 16. I'm like, that's not impressive to me. But like 60, that's impressive to me.
That's really impressive.
Like, yes, all 16-year-olds are cute and don't have any wrinkles.
Yeah.
And
maybe they're talented.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
talent is talent. I don't need an age to be impressed by talent, but like
if you still got that level of talent 40 years later, then I'm impressed.
Yes, exactly.
So, yeah.
Yes. And yeah, where I know so next week is Sharon Jones from Sharon Jones and the Daptones, and there is a documentary, isn't there, out there about her?
Yes, there is they did a documentary, I think shortly before she passed away.
I'm glad it was before. I'm going to watch that documentary before next week's episode, and I'm going to leave it to you guys whether you decide to do the same or not. You might want to watch it after you hear Ed's story, because he's going to take the lead on this one.
Yep.
But yeah, I think we'll leave you guys with a song, huh?
Okay.
I thought this would be a good one to close with, because I mentioned earlier in the show how Ed would always end The Boxer by Simon and Garfunkel by playing this little riff, and I forever thought it was part of the song, but it's not. He was actually playing Freight Train. So we're
doing my best. Not even nearly as good as she can.
You do great though, and we're not going to actually sing Freight Train. I'm just warning you, but you'll hear how how this kind of became the Witherword version of the boxer that gives a little tribute to Freight Train at the end.
Yeah. I am just a poor boy, though my story is seldom told. I have squandered my resistance for a pocket full of mumbles, such are promises. All lies and jest, still a man hears what he wants to hear and disregards the rest. When I left my home and my family, I was no more than a boy in the company of strangers, in the quiet of a railway station, running scared. Laying low, seeking out the poorer quarters where the ragged people go, looking for the places only they would know. Lie, 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 lie. Asking only workmen's wages, I come looking for a job, but I get no offers. Just to come on from the halls on 7th Avenue. I do declare there were times when I was so lonesome I took some comfort there. La 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 la. Then I'm laying out my winter clothes and wishing I was gone, going home, where the New York City winters aren't bleeding me, leading me, going home. Stands a boxer and a fighter by his trade, and he carries the reminders of every glove that laid him down or cut him till he cried out in his anger and his shame, I am leaving, but the fighter still remains. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie,
All right.
Yay.
That's Freight Train.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Ash, for putting that story together. That was fantastic.
You're welcome.
I really enjoyed it.
Good. I thought you might, Ed.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun to put together too. I wasn't sure, you don't when we pick these topics, we don't always know what we're in store for when we start digging in. Sometimes it's usually just endlessly fascinating. So
True.
Thank you, Glenn. I'm glad to bring back some memories for you. Thanks, Vonnie, Kim, and Dad, Dave, Alice, everybody. I don't know who's still here. If you're still here, give a shout, and we'll shout back. Otherwise, we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks again to our sponsor, EV.
Yay!
If you want to know more about Electro Voice and all the awesome equipment that they have,
I just got my Evolve 30M.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That's super exciting.
I know. It was an Evolve 30M. I'm going to post about it probably tomorrow on my Instagram page, which is Vagabond Voice. Just a quick little beginner's shot, but I've got a few live shows coming up here. It's a column portable speaker system, a built-in all-in-one, and it sounds so good.
I'm excited.
Oh my god.
I'm excited to hear your live experience with it. So
yes. Danuta, Linda, Richard, Barbara. Thank you guys.
Thanks everybody, and
fun day, fun show.
We will see you next week.
Yeah, see you next week. Looking forward to it.
Bye.
Bye-bye.